Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We do have a quorum present. The meeting is starting at 6. Jenny's going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Jenny. Philosophy within this school district educates every student to be a lifelong learner, a person of integrity, and a positive contributor to society. We have an appointment with the TASB representative, so we're going to go into closed session. Just want to let y'all know, but we're coming back into open. The board will convene in closed meeting as authorized by Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 551, for possible discussion of superintendent applicants in process. It is 6:01 p.m. We are in closed session. That are not on tonight's agenda, then following applies to those speakers. If a group of people want to be heard on the same topic, the board asks that they designate a spokesperson to avoid needless repetition. The board shall not allow more than 30 minutes for speakers on items not on tonight's agenda. The board has adopted rules to preclude the abuse of open forum by, for example, anyone uselessly repeating the same comment or complaint meeting after meeting. All comments by persons speaking on either agenda or non-agenda items will be limited to 3 minutes per person. I also caution you that your public comments should not complain about individual school employees by name or position or other than your own child. Identify students pursuant to Texas Government Code 551, 074, 551.0821, and 551.082. As presiding officer, I'm obligated to determine whether a person is addressing the board has attempted to administratively resolve any complaints or grievances about which they want to address the board that involve district officers or employees. In the event your comment, in the judgment of the presiding officer, constitutes a complaint or charge against the employer or officer, it may be necessary for me to interrupt you and ask that you stop and direct you to proceed with the school district's formal grievance procedures, or have the item heard in executive session depending on the nature of the complaint. If the speaker is seeking board resolution of a specific complaint, that concern should be addressed through the district's grievance process, which can be found online, included in policies DGBA, FNG, and GF. Grievance forms can be obtained at any campus administration office or in the central administration office. And thank you. Our first speaker is Ms. Melinda Gomez-Arriaga.
Hi, everyone. As Mr. Mostella said, if you don't already know, my name is Melinda Gomez-Arriaga, and I'm the president of the Teloso Midway All Sports Booster Club. We used to be called just the Booster Club, and this past year we decided that we needed to change things up, go in a different direction, and that's been our whole focus this school year. We changed the name specifically to remind everyone that the Booster Club is established for literally all sports. It's not just the Warrior Wagon at football season anymore. The support that we plan on giving all our Warriors and Cherokees will last all year long, no matter if it's Special Olympics, powerlifting, football, baseball, softball. We're covering it all, and we are right in the middle of things. So one of our first goals this year was to provide a fall varsity sports banquet for that was football, volleyball, cross country and our athletic trainers. We were able to pull that off with great praise. We had wonderful partners in Aramark that provided the meal for our student athletes and their guests. We had local companies that helped us decorate, like Kim Ryan Dance Center, that set up a selfie station that was a real big hit with all our athletes. And the high school print shop made our certificates of achievement for all of our student athletes. We encouraged all the coaches to give any extra awards, any superlatives that their team may have had at that point. And I know that we sent an invitation to you guys kind of like late this past one. We kind of threw it together in a minute, but we've already let y'all know that we will be having a spring varsity sports banquet, and we really hope that y'all join us next time. I know that Ms. Sikora and Mr. Mostello were able to join us last time, and if you're able to see their faces, how it lights up when they walk across the stage to get that certificate for all that hard work that they've done day in and day out, it really is it. I know at one point of the whole banquet, I sat back and just watched the kids because it's just so fulfilling to see them get that recognition. And we want to continue doing this. So we did fall, we'll do spring. We're already in the works for supplying our Warrior Wagon for football season. And like I said, no matter what, football is the number one crowd getter. You're always going to have the most people there. So we're very aware of keeping things Tuloso Midway, Warriors, and Cherokees. So that's what we plan on offering and selling this upcoming football season and for the rest of the year. I did just want to come before you guys and let you know what we're doing and what we have in store. We've gotten to this point not solely on parents' backs. We've had help with Dr. White, Coach O'Neill, Mr. Alvarado. All the high school administration has really supported us, especially Carol Maher. I can go to her with any question, and she's Johnny on the spot. She's been able to provide us so much support, and she'll tell you she's our biggest fan, and I really do believe that. So our next thing coming up is the spring banquet, and another thing that we had decided to do with Coach O'Neill's guidance is helping one of those principles that you talk about at the beginning of the meeting of building a well-rounded student here at Tuloso Midway, and we're specifically looking at the student athlete. And we are forming a volunteer group within our student athletes to head out into the community. And it not only looks good on the resume, on their CVs, but it feels good to them. They have their first event next Saturday, which is really great considering that it's prom. But we're going to have some people go out and volunteer at Camp Aranza Zoo in Rockport. That is a camp for kids with special needs or even medical needs like diabetics and asthmatics, where they could go to a safe place, have some summer fun, and there's medical staff. So our student athletes, along with other Valero volunteers, will head out. They'll cut the grass, they'll do some weed eating, they'll clean the dorms, and they'll get that good experience and knowing that they've done a job well done. So that's one of our key pillars when it comes to the athletic department that Coach O'Neill has set up. So I did not come empty-handed. Today, we brought you our rally towels. These are our latest item. I'm very proud to present these to you today. I hope that at your next TM event, whether it's the softball game tomorrow afternoon here at Warrior and Cherokee Stadium, or if you're going out to watch the big baseball game when the boys play Robstown tomorrow at Whataburger Field, that you'll take that towel and you'll start to rally on our Warriors and Cherokees. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. White. Thank you very much. Good to hear that. Now we move into the, like I said, the recognition for the academic career is going to be later on. So we move into discussion action items. Discuss and consider adoption of meal price for food service 22-23.
All right, do we have this on screens at all? I think you have it on your screen. Since Hurricane Harvey, we've enjoyed serving meals and not charging students for breakfast or lunch, but that period of time is changing now. And that was good for 4 years. And so now we have to do the hard part and start charging students. If a student cannot afford these prices, or if they want to see if they're eligible for free reduced, they can certainly apply. So we'll be going back to the federal application. So we're asking you tonight to approve the prices that are in front of you, and let me just read them for the audience. Primary breakfast is $0. It's still a breakfast in the classroom. Lunch will be $2.40. At the intermediate, breakfast is still $0. Lunch will be $2.40. Middle school breakfast is still $0. Lunch is $2.75. High school breakfast, $2. Lunch, $2.75. At ACC, breakfast is $2 and lunch is $2.75.
I have a question.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of our people are still hurting. Is there anything that the school district can do to help these families? I mean, with the gas prices, I mean, parents are barely able to get to work and, you know, then to have to send their kids to school with extra money, you're talking about, you know, at the middle and high school, I mean, you're talking about $25 a week. If they have multiple kids, you know, 25, 50, 75, is there anything
We do have the application, they can apply.
where they
See if
can apply for
qualify.
what?
To see if they can get it free or
And
reduced
where do they apply for this?
at registration. And
At
it will
each
probably be
school-
online.
At each school campus?
At each campus. And we need to be sure that if elementary students have a high school student, that both names are on the application.
Is there anything the school district can do to end out the year, fill up with free lunches till the end of the year? I mean, the parents are being hammered right
Well,
now.
these
is for next
prices
year.
begin in July.
Yeah, this won't start until the new school year.
It's federally reimbursed.
I don't know if things are gonna get better July is right around the corner.
I know. And I know I recognize it's difficult if you have several children, but if people will fill out that application, then it will be processed.
I will say that district-wide, we have, before we were on CEP, and I think we'll probably return to those numbers, but maybe COVID will change that a little bit, or the situation right now, but if you took our elementary and our secondary together, we were usually about 62 to 65% of the students qualified for free lunch. So the only difference that's happened in the last few years is they just haven't had to fill out the lunch application. We've had to fill out a socioeconomic form, because we still have to keep track of these numbers for federal funding and things like that. But we get what's called a direct served list, and that's got I would say over 50% of our kids are 40-something% of our kids qualify. Technically, they qualify without even filling out the application, because there's all these other factors. If they qualify for that, they automatically get free lunch. And then we take the applications in and qualify as many other people as we can. And Aramark is experienced, even though it's been 4 years since they've had to do it, they're real experienced in at the beginning of the year, when the school year starts, we get those applications. I think they also give us a 6-week,
Yeah, you have a grace
we
period.
have a grace period when the school year starts, that we can, everybody can eat. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, until we qualify everybody for the first 6 weeks.
So I guess the whole thing is just making sure the parents are well aware
Yes.
Yes.
of all this stuff at each
Yes.
campus.
Yes, and I think we are gonna have a miniature PR campaign to remind parents that, yes, it's been great these last 4 years while we qualified for the CEP program, but now we're back to, our numbers are not high enough to make it economically feasible for us to continue to feed all students for free, because our percentages aren't high enough. Thankfully, we qualified, and I guess there was a special thing back during Hurricane Harvey that qualified us back then, and we were able to do that for 4 years. But we will need to constantly remind parents that this is gonna be coming up in July.
One last question on that. So when we go on intercession, are these kids, since they've qualified for free food, are they gonna be able to pick up free food at the campuses, or How does that,
Yeah, this won't take into effect until July 1st.
I understand that,
And then
but for intersession of
For
next year,
intercession, I don't know how it normally, I think they would be charged according to their eligibility. So if a student is free, then they would receive the meal for free. If they're reduced, they'll receive it for the 40 cents. And if they're paid, they'd have to pay that price.
well, I'm asking for the people that qualify for the food. I mean,
Yes, so the ones that would qualify,
Families that really
yes.
need it, they can still come and pick
Yes.
up their lunch, even while we're in intercession.
Yes, and then like Ms. Okor said, I told her and I promised that I'll try to identify those students that are at the primary campus and they don't want to put their son that's at the high school campus or their daughter at the high school campus. We'll do our best to try to make sure the families that have an application that miss their kids, we can technically add them onto the application, even though they didn't tell us we can still add them on. But we can get verification from them and we can make it just more seamless for them. And then like the direct certified list comes out in July, and that list has, like Philip said, there's at least 40% of our students already on that list. So they're automatically gonna qualify for that free lunch and they don't have to do anything. And then if their brother or their sibling is not on that direct certified list, but we know they're in the same household and they're not on the list, we can add them to that list.
It's just that the primary and the intermediate are getting really, the enrollment, and I'm sure a lot of kids are coming in, new kids and stuff. I just don't want to miss anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get back in the swings of things. Before we were on CP, we were very aggressive about getting the free month, the applications out. If we don't have, they keep track of the kids. If we don't have them, we send them home again. We really do canvass and try to make sure that everybody who qualifies can qualify.
Thank you.
Thank you. Philip, we every year we're told about this budget that we get from Airmark, and it's only supposed to be used for cafeteria use.
It's
Could any
the
of that,
national federal program, yes. That's what the fund is.
and any of this, can any of that be used for some of these bills?
Well, I guess you could supplement it, but it's not, now that we're going back to CEP, I will say, yes, we do get for the qualified meals, or for the qualified students that we offer eligible meals to, we get reimbursed from the feds. But we have to charge for the ones that are not eligible to get reimbursed. But I can tell you that even at these prices, we're gonna be back to where we're gonna be, our operations are gonna be closer to, our expenses are gonna pretty well match our revenues. And we're not, if we could, I can tell you, I mean, Gregory Portland has decided to subsidize their lunches for another year, but they must have a mega fund balance to offer that. Unfortunately, I think we've got to go back into our mode of, we got to charge for some of the lunches, and we have to, look at our budget accordingly, the way it was before we were on CEP.
What were our prices before? 'Cause
I can tell you that, even though we stopped having to charge when we got on CEP, every year, I think last year was the only year that I didn't, I still brought new prices and increased them a little bit every year, because one thing, we were really, really low on what we were charging before when we weren't on CEP. And I think the high school lunches, they were probably at, I want to say like maybe $2.10 or $2.20 is the last time we adopted prices. That was back in 1920, I say that.
It's about like that.
2019, 2020 was the last time that I still brought those, because the feds are saying they don't want you to supplement because the reimbursement rate, the regular reimbursement rate is about $3.50-something. And so they want school districts to inch up the paid lunches closer to that reimbursement rate, because they don't want you making all the money off the federal reimbursement and then charging artificially low prices for what the paid lunches to supplement what the feds are paying. So this is a pretty steep hike, but I will tell you, these prices that we're adopting, this is what all the other districts around us were charging 3 years ago, right when Harvey started. So we're just now kind of getting back up to where we need to be. I know 275 is a lot, but I don't know if you can you get a Happy Meal for 275? I don't know if you can.
No.
But-
Anything for 275. What is the staff, I don't see a staff price on it.
That's another thing that I've never brought the staff price to the board before, but there's a calculator that we have to use to calculate staff prices. Right now, I believe it's $4.25 or $4.50. $4.50 is what, there's another calculator that we have to use, I guess, per TDA, and I don't know if it's the feds, I don't know if it's the Texas Department of Agriculture, that there is a minimum that you have to charge for adult meals, and right now we're at $4.50.
Okay.
Thank you,
Questions?
Philip, and thank you. Good discussion there. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
It is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the proposed paid meal prices as presented.
Thank you. I'll make that motion. John, second, please. Ben seconds it. Any other further questions, comments? All those in favor? Those opposed, motion carries 5. Thank you very much. Moving to the next discussion action item. Discuss and consider approval of a resolution of emergency declaration for technology. Ms. Gordon.
You want me to take this, or you?
Tonight, we're bringing this resolution to you, and really, this is just just kind of to give us a little bit more leeway. As you're aware, we've had some outside attacks on our data systems, and we had another round last week. And just something that came up from it was, well, I don't see this as ending. I see this as we're going to constantly have to keep up our defenses and make sure that we're adequately doing everything that we can to protect our data, but we still need to have instruction and we still need to run business and everything. And so we filed another claim, so that will help us utilize our insurance claim, will help us use these other companies that are helping us deal with these ransomware people and helping us beef up all our systems and everything to protect ourselves. But one thing I'm asking tonight is, if we could declare this an emergency, we're gonna go through another round of them helping us through another insurance claim, but if we do the resolution, that'll just give us another little leeway that if something comes up that, maybe we need to do something pretty quickly and say, okay, we need to do this to beef up our system, or, I don't know, other kind of protection, that'll just give us the leeway that we can go and maybe make that purchase and not have to have because we still have to follow the purchasing rules that say, especially if something costs over $50,000, we either have to go out for bid or it has to be on a co-op. There's rules that we can do. If we approve this resolution, that'll just give us the flexibility that if we do need to do something, spur of the moment, an investment to protect our system and do something, it just gives us that option. Obviously, anything we do underneath this, I'm hoping we never have to exercise anything that this resolution would apply to. But this just gives us a little bit of leeway that says if something comes up and we need to make a purchase or we need to do something to help our system, we can do that. Obviously, we would come back and we would report and say, this is what we had to do. We had to go maybe sign a contract with a company to help us do something with our system. It would just give us a little bit of leeway. But I'm hoping that we won't ever need to exercise anything from this. This just gives us options that if we're pressed for time, we need to do something, and we need to, like I said, maybe enter into a contract with a company to help us do something to protect our system. We have that option. And then we'd immediately come back. That's one of the things on the resolution. Anything we do that we exercise, if we have to exercise anything under this resolution, we would immediately report it back to y'all as soon as we could.
After the thing's done.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, any idea for
Well,
what the
I'll give an
service
example, and maybe I'm going to ask Trish to, I apologize, I wasn't here Friday, and I was off today. And so I don't, last week we had another round of phishing and people trying to infiltrate our system. And so then it was kind of like, well, there's some of the services, these companies that we've been working with through our insurance claim, you know, they've got, I want to say programs, or they've got methods, you know, systems of protecting your thing. Well, they're pretty costly. And so the question was, well, what can we do? You know, we really need to turn this on like right now, you know, and how much would it cost to have this protection, you know, for a month or 3 months or something, and it's pretty pricey. But I know Trish was talking to them last week, and that's when they said, well, file another claim, and then we'll automatically get their services for at least maybe 30 more days. So we'll have them, and we'll be working with them. But once that 30 days is up, then we have to really make some decisions about, you know, maybe there's some other things we need to do. Now, that buys us a little bit more time if we can do things the legal way, like maybe go out for bid or just find out, get some other proposals and see if this is the best deal for our district. If we have time to do that, that's absolutely what we're gonna do, and we won't have to exercise the emergency of making us like what I call a spot purchase that might not follow what our purchasing laws say. But what I'm asking tonight with the resolution is, we do have that other option, that if we need to suddenly contract with an entity to say, okay, give us this service or do this we can go ahead and do that right away. We wouldn't have to call a meeting, and it wouldn't even be calling a meeting. It's purchasing law. It gives us more options outside the regular purchasing procedures that we're required to follow.
I have a question. Well, I have two. So this resolution literally gives you an open-end book up to $50,000.
I wouldn't even put a dollar amount on it, but I would say
More than
yes.
that.
Well, exactly, but if you go into a contract, it could literally, which Steven just said, it could literally take you into,
Yes. It
you know,
could.
the only problem I have with that is that, you know, that does exceed.
Yes.
I mean, you could literally go into a $500,000 contract without having to come back with us if we approve this resolution.
That is true, but I can promise you I wouldn't do that. But we're talking about, because, you know, mainly what this is used for is for more physical things. Like if we had a sudden windstorm and it blew a section of roof off of a school, and it rained and it got flooded in there, we don't have time to go out for bids for crews to come in and clean it up or something like that. You declare it an emergency, and then we could hire whoever we needed to hire to come in and, you know, clean up the mess. This is a little different. We're in the cyber world. This isn't a physical damage. It's just, unfortunately, in the cyber universe, these services are expensive, or can be expensive, of what we need to protect our system. Like I'm gonna defer to Trish a little bit too. When the company that we're working with, you know, they initially said 1 year of coverage was gonna be a pretty large figure. And then when Trish said, wow, that's pretty big number, well, they cut the number in half.
Because we're a school.
Because we're a school. And then it's like, well, can you cut it in half again? Because, you know, we're gonna get the best, we're gonna try to get the best value. That's one of the number one principles of purchasing for a government is, you know, it's not necessarily the lowest bottom price, it's, you also want the best value for your district. And I understand if, you know, this is basically asking for an open checkbook, but I still say we still apply. And when I say we, I say every director and every principal and every other person here at the district. We're constantly looking for the best value. We're not just, you know, we're gonna have to really look at something. And like I said, I hope that we don't have to exercise anything under this. I just think it's a nice, what's the right word? Something to fall back on if we absolutely positively have to.
This last round of cyber attack, were any of the campuses, affected?
I think we got everybody back really
We
quickly.
stopped it very, very quickly, but the links in the email that went out led to the same website, one of the same websites that the first attack led to. So we know they're related. We didn't pay the ransom, so they're continuing
They're trying.
to
Yes.
trying. And the cost of something like this, if we did have to get some protection, is a whole lot less than the $600,000 ransom. They want us
So
to pay.
Trish, right now, we don't have nothing in place to check phishing?
Yes, we do.
We have lots of things in place.
But that means that our staff is not actually exercising that practice.
Somewhat,
Because
yes.
they're opening up emails that shouldn't be opened.
Exactly. People
Y'all don't
just,
do random checks?
well,
Because
we
we do
have,
this out of my job. They'll send you a fake email.
Yes.
And see if you can pick up the back end of
we
that.
don't have that in place. We have cybersecurity training. We email them about passwords and about clicking on things. And, but they still do to a point. And we caught this one immediately, and this one, someone actually hacked an account and pretended to be that person. So others who got that email thought, oh, it came from Carol. I'm gonna open it. And some people clicked it. But this time we said, we know 68 of you opened the door. By clicking that, you opened the door for the bad guys. We know exactly which people clicked on the email. So, we're getting better about actually digging down and finding out, who's doing what. But, and they thought they were safe because they got it from Carol. But they're learning, we're all learning that
Well, I
even
know,
that, you can't be safe.
I know that in our company, you're supposed to, course over the mouse and then, the email to make sure it's a legitimate email. That's one of the biggest and most catching things that everyone misses. But if you miss this cyber, or this cyber alert deal, or this fish email, you then have to take like a CU course.
Right.
You go to a course online and you have to sit there for an hour of your day bored. Again, I think I've taken it 30 times, but I already know the answers. But no, and I understand, you're right. You see Mr. Corr sent me an email, I just opened it, it says Mr. Corr.
Exactly. You trust.
I understand that, I'm not blaming anybody that did that, please understand that. But I think I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what are we doing to educate our educators to not be so quick, take the time before you open everything, because everything's done by email right now, or at least some type of, social media of some sort.
That's true.
So, no matter how we reach out to our parents or to our staff, we're gonna use some type of cyber.
Right. Yes, and we do have several things starting, a multi-factor authentication. We're starting that probably this week, where they'll have to use another code, from their phone or from their email to log in. But like I said, this one I think caught people off guard because it came from someone that we all trust. But someone hacked her account. And so there's so many new ways that they get in that we have to keep developing some kind of training to.
Because we're Microsoft based and we have an authenticator,
Right.
and you have to do that on your phone and then put it into the computer.
I'm gonna have to call point of order. And my point is, we're off subject. We're talking about cyber, this is about a declaration, emergency declaration for technology, not resolution of cybersecurity issues.
And then because I know my vote.
So, is there any other discussion about the declaration, resolution of emergency declaration for technology?
Now, I had a question. So
Yes.
this is the first agenda item we've had on this topic, correct? Have y'all discussed this? Have y'all brought anything to us about this?
No,
Before this?
this just came up basically suddenly from the second round of
But when was the first round?
January 31st was the first cyber attack, it was January 31st.
And there was no action that the board needed to know about at that point?
No, we filed our claim. We have, and part of the claim process was we have this company that the insurance company uses, and they had their system turned on, and I say that very loosely, I don't know exactly what it did, but that ended, I think, on the 9th.
March 9th.
March 9th is when that coverage ended.
And
then
this
happened on-
emergency action doesn't require the board to do anything either, correct? You just notify us after you purchase whatever it is you purchase.
If we have to do something that doesn't follow the purchasing laws quickly,
So if it follows purchasing laws, you don't have to notify us at all.
I would guarantee you something that related to this, we would notify you what we were doing.
We
even
didn't
if it
really
was-
notify us about the first thing.
Well, there was nothing to purchase then. We filed the claim and the claim covered.
Okay.
The company that, our insurance company, has all these other companies that, we dealt with to handle the
After
claim.
the first one, I mean, I got emails stating that we were looking at companies to help us. I mean, so that's not something we should have known about?
Nope.
Because
I'm not sure
I got
I'm
a
not sure
couple
what-
of emails saying that we were looking into companies to help us with these kind of problems. But I don't know what, it's just too open-ended for me,
Absolutely,
you know? I mean, but we're not saying who's gonna help us, when they're gonna help us, not even how they're gonna help
No,
us.
because I will do it to the same extent where this is traditionally used is, you know, if something floods a building suddenly, we don't have time to go out for bid, we don't have time to go out to do
But
normal.
that's also
purchasing.
insurance.
That's insurance, that's totally
Yeah.
different than what this is asking
That's
for.
where good practice would be of importance.
True.
I don't have no questions.
Any questions?
It's the administration's recommendation that the board approve the proposed resolution of emergency declaration for technology as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Secor. Do we have a motion on administrative recommendation? Okay, there's no motion on the administrative recommendation, so issues out. Okay, we move on to the next one, budget preparation for year 2022, 2023, report of teacher salaries.
Okay, this is gonna take a while. Do we want to do the ACC?
Well,
Is everybody here?
they got here. If that's pleasure of the board, we can have the award for the ACC prior to this one.
Is that all right? Okay, we have this plaque. And the Texas Association of Alternative Education is proud to present Tolosa Midway, the Academic Career Center, with a Best Practice Award for 2021. This $500 award is presented annually to an alternative school who presents a best practice that is designed to recognize outstanding and promising classroom practices. And they created Passports to Success. It impacts health and safety, future preparation, community service, and skill development. This practice allows students at the ACC an opportunity to receive a graduation cord, where students originally had no way of obtaining cords. Recognizing the fact that students have important life skills and experiences that will shape and enrich their lives, the Tolosa Midway ACC designed Passport to Success to enrich and educate its students for the future. Designing an actual passport and printing in the district's print shop, Tolosa Midway ACC documented the completion of each of the 4 categories to the best practice. In the health and safety concept, students learned valuable information on dating and domestic violence. In the community resource awareness and avenues for help, they learned a future preparation. In the making healthy food choices and meal, I read the wrong line. Community resource awareness and avenues for help are part of their program. Making healthy food choices and meal preparation were covered during future preparations. In the 4th concept, skill development, students covered anti-bullying, yoga, and mindfulness, just to name a few of their ideas. The overall Passport to Success program illustrates that we have a responsibility to educate the whole child. Please join us in congratulating Tolosa Midway Academic Career Center with this year's Best Practice Award for 2021. And if we could have our Principal, Ms. McLaren.
Thank you. I want to make sure to let y'all know that, and my staff hears this all the time, I was really disappointed when I got this plaque because it has my name on it. And this is not about me. I believe, and my staff knows, I believe that leadership is about everybody feeling that what we're doing is what's best for the kids. I can have all the ideas in the world, but they're who implement it. I don't operate top down. They know that if they say, I don't like that idea, we go on to something else. But they have bought into this, and every one of them teach some of the things in each one of the categories, and they've done an amazing job. Every single one of them have.
The table?
You wanna come this way?
I guess it is easier to go in.
Yeah, don't get this way. Over here.
Well, either way you win, you have to jump over.
Oh, you don't need it.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Got it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Would y'all come up?
Appreciate y'all so much. Oh, she's got the passport.
Yes, we do.
I'll just hold it like.
Looks like a real passport.
Yeah.
Franny.
One, 2, and 3. Got it.
Thank you so much.
How that passport works. That looks like a real passport.
It does. The print shop did an amazing job. It's just like if you were traveling the world, and based on the 4 areas, when a student participates, the signature would do an initial, so it's, and then if they fill it up, then they're eligible for a course for graduation. So they see them, they can see them every day. It's important for them to sign in, and
And when they're done, they can take them with them, and we try to incorporate that into any resumes they do, because they can show that they have learned all of these skills throughout the years that they've been at ACC, so.
Neat idea.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations.
All right. We'll talk a little bit about budget preparation for next year. Report of teacher salaries. This is a report only, no action. So we're just discussing. And our very first page starts off with how many students we have and how many teachers we have. And so we will be keeping this information with us. This is from our TAPER report, which you heard a report of that a couple of months ago. The packet that I have prepared is one that our administrative team has already gone through and will continue to discuss over time. So if we look at the next page, district teacher salary comparisons, we took what our beginning teacher salary is with the 0, and if you read from left to right, Tuloso Midway is $46,200, Flower Bluff $47,000, and you read across, that's when a beginning teacher. And then I condensed the chart, so you're looking now at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. And that last line, the difference between the starting out and year 20. And so if somebody started with us at $46,200 and the chart never changed for 20 years, then all they would be realizing over their lifetime to 20 is $12,245. If you look at Flower Bluff, their realization is $10,900, Calallen $8,978, West Oso $7,055. And these are what they're paying now, and they may also be looking at increases. So what we're trying to do is just compare where we are this year. And we looked at the TASB salary study from April of '21, and we found that the largest group of teachers was 6 to 10 years of experience. We have 57 teachers, which makes up 21% of all teachers employed. Our second group has 11 to 15 years of experience, with 51 teachers at 19%. So that's some considerations we looked at. On the next page, you have the larger chart which goes through each year. And in the blue area, which is kind of difficult to see, the state of Texas has a chart, and this is a minimum chart. We must pay this much. For a beginning teacher, the state says $33,660. And you can see that just about everybody is over that amount. All right, let's look at the next page. So then on page 4, we thought what we need to do is look at Calallen, because they would be our competitor for trying to get teachers. And so the column on the left in yellow is, I wrote TM above it, and the next one is a C for Calallen. And we looked at, I think it's easier to see the difference here. And so you might say, well, let's just adopt Calallen's chart since we might be vying for the same teacher. And at the bottom of the page, it says to be able to do that, we would need $752,863.70. And then we look at how many people are on each one of these steps. And in the left-hand column, you'll see step 00 is beginning teacher. 01 is after you've had a year of experience. FTE is how many people are on that step. All right, next sheet. From the general fund, we have categories of people. And instruction would be teachers, counselors, librarians, and registered nurses. And this is how much we need for those salaries. $15,961,079. Administration, $2,121,383. Certified support, you can see that amount, over $1 million. Auxiliary, non-exempt, our paraprofessionals, clerical, so on. And then maintenance, which is hourly, transportation hourly, and then federal. So some of our teachers have a combination of local funds and federal funds for their salaries, depending on what task they have to do and what they qualify for. Then on page 6, we're telling you about stipends. And if you have a doctorate, we have 2 in the district with doctorates, they get $3,000. Well, I guess they get $1,500 each, so for a total of $3,000. There are 91 people with masters, and that's $91,000. And they're for growth.
This is what we have budgeted. I budget a little bit because a lot of times we have teachers get their masters in the middle of the year, so then they start getting their master's stipend.
So for a master's, one person would get $1,000.
$1,000 for the whole year, yeah.
And then we have masters who are federally funded. There are 6 of those people.
I'm sorry, I have a question. The teachers that get a master's in the middle of the year, aren't they under contract though? How do you change that budget?
Well, that's what I budget for growth. In other words, I budget in case people get.
extra dollars.
a few
I
extra
understand
dollars
that,
In
but-
case they get their master's.
Understand
But it's a
that we-
stipend, it's not part of their, well, it is part of their, it's part of their contract, but it's not part of their salary.
It is an extra stipend
It's an extra stipend.
that is above and beyond their salary.
So you're thinking like if somebody graduated with their master's in December?
Right.
What, how would we?
Because we, don't we approve that like in April?
But stipends they can add
But
whenever.
but stipends
Yeah,
are
they
different,
add
so we
whenever.
don't control the stipend
No.
timeline. So where is that in our budget when we look at our annual
At the
review?
beginning of the year, when I bring the budget to you, I have the stipends that I'm budgeting for the year in there, and I put a little bit in there in case we have some growth. We also, sometimes we might hire a teacher later in the year that has a master's, so that, you know, that's what I budget for, just in case we have a little, room, in case we have some people that come later that have masters.
So when we're looking at the budget, there's just one line that says stipends, and it has a big number on it, we don't know what's what.
Because one of the things we need to keep clear is that whenever we have a salary chart and we say this is what we're going to pay, we cannot go below that. So the way you give people extra money is, are they doing extra duties, and we give them a stipend. Coaches is an excellent example. We have $370,000 for stipends for coaches, and the athletic director determines how that's divided up.
Are you able to find out what other school stipends are?
Yes. We have to call them and ask them. It's not just out there. Yeah. Extracurricular, $229,000. Extra duty, $156,000. Phone allowance, $20,000. And grand total for $872,851.
What is the difference between extracurricular and extra duty? Just for clarification.
I would say extracurricular, and I'm gonna speak in school district accounting, but that's function 36. Like extracurricular would be, I'm the student council sponsor, I'm the cheerleaders, I'm the band, I'm the choir. It's the extracurricular stuff. Extra duty is more like a department chairperson, something that's, it involves kids, but extracurricular is basically something dealing with a student group, an extracurricular student group. Extra duty is, I'm the third grade department chair. There's other duties that we have that are not necessarily, they're not extracurricular. They have to do with more your instructional job or your, whatever job you do, a counselor or a diagnostician or the bilingual teachers. We give a stipend now to bilingual teachers. The extra duty they do, that's more related to their teaching job, not with a student group or helping extracurricular things that students do.
So like extra duty be like person in charge of the parade or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
The book fair, I don't know what these.
Yeah. Yes. That's
How about
true.
like at football games, like, all these administrators and everybody on duty, is that just on their regular pay?
Yes.
Yes, that's regular
I'm
pay.
sorry, guys.
They're all shaking their heads. They're all shaking their heads.
So they don't
We're
get
volunteers.
Yeah, that's why I asked what
We don't-
extra, that's what I was wondering what extra
We don't
duty
pay
was.
them any extra for the events?
Usually,
Track, nothing?
usually administrators, no. All these stipends are for teachers and other people.
And our principals have not had a raise in a while. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So anyway, the stipends go with part of their salary. It's divided by 12, so it's in equal monthly payments. And in the event somebody changes, let's say they don't want to be the cheerleader sponsor anymore, then that is taken away from their salary. And then somebody else steps up and says, well, I want to do it. So then, it's divided by 12, what's left, and so on. So it's pretty time consuming. But we're just letting you know what all these stipends are, because it is a pretty heavy expense on the budget.
Something definitely has to be done for the administration, because, I see them everywhere. They're at all the events and stuff. And, I know, something has to be done for everybody.
Yes, sir. That's what we're working on.
And if you look at the following pages, you'll kind of see the breakdown of, like, this is the co-curricular stipends. Like I said, it's academic decathlon, honor society, choir director, anything that has to do with something extracurricular. That's what I classify into that category. UIL, academics, we have lots of other things, Special Olympics. And then when you get into the extra duty, then it's more the department heads, counselors, health science, the bilingual stipends. That's just the difference. And really, it's really just kind of a classification thing. It also helps me when I break the budget down. It helps me to put things into smaller piles when I'm compiling the budget.
So the salaries and the stipends and the extra duty, all that is pretty complicated, and that is the biggest part of our budget. But then the next pages that he is going to show you, we are working with administrators on starting to look at what their current budget is to be sure that they're spending what they need to spend for this current year budget, but then to start planning ahead for next year's budget. And we're still following that budget calendar. And one of the things that we're doing that's a little different this year is we are telling the campuses, this is how much you have. And then Philip and Dr. White are going to go out and meet with each principal and whoever does their bookkeeping on campus to talk about how much money they have in each category. And if they need to move it around, what makes sense for them. We also want to make sure that if we have instructional programs, like on software, that we're really paying for what we're getting and that we're being cost effective. So this just starts that conversation tonight, so you will see what numbers we're working with.
This is our base budget that was, basically I rolled over last year's budget, and this is where we're gonna go forward now and start planning for next year. And like Mr. Kort said, if you go to the last page, payroll is the biggest chunk of the general fund. And here's where this is how I normally, present the salaries, and then I've got athletic stipends on there, then all the other stipends are rolled up together. This is where the categories are. As we develop the budget for next year, I'll be bringing, this is the summary that I bring to y'all, and I'll bring y'all a cumulative summary of how the ups and downs, the changes that we're making, whatever we calculate for raises, how much it's gonna increase. And one thing to remember about that figure, that $700,000 figure, that's just the salary amount. That doesn't include the benefits. So we have to calculate some benefits in there, Medicare, TRS, workers' comp, there's other costs associated with those increased salaries that we have to also account for. And another goal that we're shooting for this year is we want to try to raise the insurance contribution, because the insurance rates go up every year. We need to increase the contribution. Right now, we're at $275 a month, so I'd really like to inch that number, keep taking that number up. Because we have probably about 60% of the employees are on the TRS insurance. So that's another benefit that we're looking to increase.
Philip, I know this isn't a big number, but on the cell phone allowance,
Yeah.
how many people have cell phones
It's
that
pretty
the school
much
pays for?
every administrator, and then we've identified some other key personnel that, like our technology department.
Right.
Sometimes we have to get, we say.
But do you have a general number, like how many people do you think have cell phones?
It's $600, it's $50 a month, so it's $600 a year. So if you take that number and divide it by 600, that'll tell you the number.
Okay,
And
so-
I don't do math in my head, but.
Oh, so that's, you just gave them allowance for the phone, or are we buying these phones
No,
actually?
it's just an allowance.
Allowance.
It's
Okay,
not-
it's only
we're not
$50.
paying for the phone, we're not, it's kind of it's a very.
It's an allowance.
Okay,
It's a very minute
I
number.
wasn't sure
but
if it was certain people or everybody or what.
It's every administrator, all of technology, we also include our athletic trainers, because trainers work at night, they work all week, we've identified certain positions that we like. It's basically, you work for the district. I think our rule of thumb is if we need to get a hold of you, it's just a little, I call it, it is a little bit of a perk, but.
So that comes up to about 400 people who get allowances.
No.
At $50 a,
Well, it's,
No,
it's,
it's annually 600, so if you
Yeah,
take
that's
20,000.
600, okay.
it's
You take
less than
20,000.
40.
Yeah,
That's about 30.
okay.
If you take 20,000, if I had to guess, it's probably about 25 people.
Central administrators.
Like I said, I don't do.
That's good.
What do I have budgeted, 20,000?
Yeah, it's like 30-something.
34.
Divide that by 16. Yeah, 34, approximately 34 people. But it's every administrator, every director, technology department, our trainers, and there might be a few other essential people that we say. It's just, and it really, it's kind of like a little perk. I mean, there were days that when cell phones first came out, they were pretty expensive. I'm not saying they're not expensive now, but they are. More relatively, and everybody has their own plan, but yeah, it's just an allowance. We don't, we're not paying for anybody's phone.
Any other questions about the budget? What we'd like to do is each month bring you a topic or a little
Piece of information.
piece of information, like a little mini class.
Another piece of the puzzle that we're putting together.
Yes, because the budget is something that you have to take over time. And of course, right now, we do not have our revenues. It's not ready for that. So we right now do not know how much money we're going to be able to bring in.
So this,
Just one last question about this page here. That TRS right there, that's for everyone's TRS, or is that for the?
Yes, that's the district's cost. It's either our, whatever the district has to contribute towards everybody's TRS participation.
So that doesn't consider our retiree hours either, though?
No.
That's a whole different
The only thing
category.
that would be in there, if we have to pay a surcharge on a retiree, it would be in that, it would fall under that.
So it would be in that, it'd be in that
Yes.
number there.
The only TRS cost that we have possibly for a retiree would be if we're paying surcharges.
Well, I don't think we're gonna have a choice very soon, but, so on stipends, we have about 834, 848,
Yeah, those-
around there. 148,000 in just stipends alone. And then you come back with an insurance cost of 1,072,000. And then, of course, on that, we would like to do a increase in
Yeah, the health
salary.
insurance, that's the contribution, that's the $275 per month per
So-
people that take it.
I guess the question is, when we see these neighboring districts, we're eliminating all the other perks that they get as well, right? You're only going by what they pay out. So, I mean, like, let's say we're behind $6,000, but they're not paying as much into their benefit package.
No,
Are
I
y'all
can
comparing that?
tell you
most
that.
are paying more.
I can
No,
tell
I'm
you-
just- I'm asking a
I can
question,
tell
you know,
other
are you
districts are
comparing-
contributing over 400 a month.
No, I'm just, I just wanna make sure that, we're looking at all of this,
Yes.
the way it is, cause this is new, and it's something that, I'm sure you've done it for years, but, this advance notice is where, this is the first time that I think that we don't see it just on the day that we're approving the budget. That, it's broken down the way that is right there, and that's pretty interesting.
On the TRS, can we get a breakdown on the retiree hires on a different because we're gonna have to start paying all of it, right, next year?
All of what?
The penalty on
It's a charge.
the surcharge?
We're currently paying surcharge, a few individuals that is subject to. We're already paying some surcharges.
If they're
Some
full-time.
surcharge.
If they're
They have
full-time,
to be full-time.
they have to be full-time, and it depends on when they retired. And if they're full-time, there's several criteria that determine whether we have to pay a surcharge or not.
So this planned budget, how much of an increase is it over last year's budget? That's where.
We haven't changed, we haven't done anything yet. This is what I.
This is basically
what I
last year's
call-
budget?
This is the base budget.
Okay.
It's basically last year's budget.
Okay.
And we're gonna start making changes to it, like the property insurance. I know 6 months of it is already going up because we just signed the new, like I told you, the insurance, our big property insurance. 6 months is in one fiscal year and 6 months is in the other fiscal year. So I just kind of have to project what the next 6 months for next year, next March 1st. And they're already telling me it's probably going to be another double-digit increase. So I have to consider how much of that we need to take into account.
So Philip, when will we start seeing the actual numbers, since you're already working on them? When will we start
I
seeing the
anticipate
actual numbers?
every month, like, we're getting ready to get into April. We get preliminary values. The appraisal district's required to give us preliminary values before the end of the month. They usually give them way earlier than the end of the month, so.
March?
Of April.
Of April.
Of April. So once we start getting that number, I'll start plugging in what possible, and then we have to start, you know, I've talked about before, we have to start plugging in, well, what ifs? Because, you know, I can tell you this year, normally our attendance rate has been about 96, 95%. This year, I think if you averaged it, I think we're in the low 90s. So we got, and right now they're not talking, you know, they could change their mind, but right now there's no talk of a hold harmless for this fiscal year that's getting ready to end. So I have to look at, okay, what do we think our attendance rates are? Because before COVID, our attendance rates were pretty steady. So I could pretty much count on, you know, 95, 96% of ADA. And then you just have to, and then our enrollment hasn't wavered hugely. So I'd pretty much say, you know, I can say this is what we're going to use to estimate our revenue for next year. Next year is going to be it's a little bit dicier. We're going to have to decide where do we want to throw that dart and say this is what we're going to go with. This is what we're going to work with. Because it's just like your personal budget. When you add up all your revenues and then you add up all your expenditures, and when your expenditures are way bigger than this number right here, then that's when it really starts getting fun.
Because we depend on the kids showing up to school.
Right.
To make the pay, because.
Right.
We need at least 95% at ADA.
Right, because we're not worried about the taxes, because we have plenty of tax money.
Like I will say, if I sound like a broken record, I apologize, but one thing that did help us when they changed using the certified, when they got rid of the lag and using the lag of certified values to calculate your revenue for that year, that's where it doesn't, Flint Hills protesting a big chunk of their value and not paying it has not adversely affected us, because our taxes might have been a little bit less than what I said, but then the state revenue makes up for it if we've got the attendance. If we've got the ADA, the state revenue makes up for what our taxes, so if we collect more taxes than we thought, then our state revenue goes down, but the pie doesn't get bigger or smaller. We're wholly funded based upon our ADA. As long as we've got kids in the seats, we're gonna get pretty much what we projected we thought we were gonna get. But if one of those factors
So that's the
changes,
job.
if one of those factors changes, then things start. And it's one of those things, there's so many factors, and a change in each one of them can have an up or down effect in the bottom line. So at some point, we have to pick a point where this is what we're gonna stick with, this is what we're, and I'll remind y'all, budget is just another word for guess. Budget just is more official sounding.
I just want to say something about substitutes, though, because with COVID, it's been hard to know how much money to allow for substitutes. And thank y'all for raising the substitute rate. Ms. Elizondo had sub-orientation just a little while ago this evening, and 35?
More than 35.
More than 35 people came forward to sub, and that's desperately needed. So we appreciate all of her efforts.
Thank you.
And I
Well,
just,
we need to give our teachers more money to keep them coming to work instead. That's what it is.
That's right.
That's
true.
right.
That's true.
Okay.
But it's gonna have to be, it has to be across the board, right? You're gonna give us all these numbers? I mean, like, when we're looking at the increase, we want to increase everything across the board, right?
Correct. That's why I
Okay,
gave you.
that's why I'm kind of
If you
lost
go-
with the breakdown. I'm like.
If you go to that one page, I believe it might be page 5, I just kind of broke down the staff and I kind of showed you what we're currently budgeting.
Right.
So you can get an idea of, like for administrators, right now we're budgeting whatever that number was, $2 million. Well, if you take 1% of that, that's $21,000. So you can kind of get an idea of if we give raises to the other categories of people, because like Ms. Secor said, when we're talking about the salary scale, that's only for teachers, librarians, counselors, and registered nurses. That's the steps on the salary scale.
Right.
All those other categories that I have listed there on page 5, that's your administrators, all your directors and your principals. And then we've got other certified staff, the diags, there's other people that also, I've got their budget in there, so you can kind of get an idea of if we're gonna give across the board raises. And then it's a little different when you start looking in the truly hourly people, like Patrick's people, the bus drivers, and then our maintenance, custodial, grounds people. You start looking at their hourly rates, how much we can, we're also looking at, we want to be competitive with the area, and things like that. So yes, definitely, you'll see as we go to each category of expenditures, I have the backup to explain we're increasing the budget or we're decreasing the budget because of X, Y, Z.
Okay. And then that would include the Friday night football. Adding that in there, right? That's what we're gonna look at. The administrators being on duty. Or that would be a
That
whole
would just be
different.
something that we'd have to discuss if that's another stipend that we wanted to offer.
Okay.
Lots of
Thank
variables.
you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, the next item before discussing, consider second reading of update 118 EHAA local
All right.
school health advisory council.
When you adopted Update 118 last month, after its second reading, I'm the one who held out the School Health Advisory Council because I didn't think we would be able to accomplish it this year. But when we called TASB and said, well, we're going to adopt 118, but we want to hold back this one policy, they said, no, you can't do it. So I need to put it back in, and it's the one that is talking about sex education and having several readings. And we're actually not to that point yet because we don't have the resources. They've not given us the titles of the books or programs for us to select from. But we need to go ahead and adopt it as part of 118.
So this is the
So I'm
second
putting it
reading.
back in.
So we have
It's
to
actually
adopt
the
it but
third.
not know anything about it? Right.
You're adopting,
Something we don't know anything about, we're gonna adopt it.
but you're
Well,
just
we-
adopting the policy establishing a process. So you're adopting the process of the policy.
We have
That's
to
it.
do the policy. I was afraid if we put it in there and we weren't able to do it because of factors beyond our control, that we would be in non-compliance. But I worried too much about that, and we just should have voted for it. So my apologies. This is actually your third reading,
Yeah, I was getting ready to say.
this one sheet.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm just, if it's actually processed or if it's actually,
So
I mean, to me,
it's the administration's recommendation that the board approve the second reading, which is technically the third reading of update 118 as presented. It's EHAA local.
Thank you, Ms. Secor. Do we have a motion administrative recommendation, please?
I don't understand this.
Yeah, me neither. I don't understand what we're doing then. I'm gonna go along with what Stephen just says, okay, just so I get this right, because obviously I'm real confused today. This isn't in effect yet, right? We don't have no curriculum or nothing set up.
No,
for
but
this.
we have to do this process.
So we have to do this process.
not a choice.
Even though it's a local, so
But this is
my
just part of a
understanding.
reading though.
No, this is the third one, so this is gonna go in.
Yeah.
So you go back to what Steven's saying, we're gonna adopt it, and we haven't, there's nothing there to support it.
That was my confusion. I apologize.
And, I mean, and of course, I go back to, I always thought, by the TASB classes I thought TASB took, they did legal and we did local, but
Well, they suggest the local.
they suggested local and we just followed along.
this is a local policy.
Yeah, I know, I mean,
And now it sounds like they require it for
they're
us.
requiring.
It's
it for
follow,
us.
so if you go to the next, I know you're looking at the policy on there. Did you see the email that
I
went
saw
back
that,
and
Ms.
forth?
Austin.
Yeah, where she responded back and said, according to the Texas Education Code, are required to adopt the policy, but the process is what you guys are going to establish later. So that's where it's a little confusing.
And I
Okay,
guess
the
it's all-
policy will be later, but it's tonight.
The process of the policy is what you're adopting today.
That's what she was trying to state in those emails that went back and forth.
Because it falls under the education code, so I
Yes.
I
So this
copied
has-
it for y'all.
So this is a legal and a local.
Yes.
That's what's happening in this one then. Well, I guess we don't have choice.
I will make the motion to adopt this on the third reading of EHA local. Do we have a second, please?
A second.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? I understand reading the emails and everything that transpired back and forth, that it was being, TASB being our policy consultants and making legal and local, and they're just combining with it. And I think what Ms. Secor was saying was that
I don't
She
understand
wasn't
why you
certain.
left that out in the first place. I don't understand why you left that out in the first place, because now it's, if we don't vote on it, we're gonna kill the whole deal. And that's not what my intent is, but what was the reasoning behind that, though? I mean,
Because we weren't ready. We didn't have the
and why
materials.
are we ready now? Do we have the materials?
No, but TASB says we have to adopt it.
it was a local policy.
It goes with 118.
Yeah, it makes us look bad here because we have people looking at us, and I don't understand it wholeheartedly, but you're saying we weren't ready, we're still not ready, but if we don't vote on it, then it's gonna kill the whole process. And then that's not fair to us, because, I mean, it looks like we got blindsided here.
This is, like you said, this is the third time, and
Well, yeah, Paul, it's the third time, but this wasn't in here.
the third time, the first time it came up,
It was
Explain
in
that.
there. It was in 118.
But the second time you pulled it out.
Yes. And
So
you
we didn't
voted.
see it on the second time.
Oh, you did see it.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
It was in the
then-
packet.
Okay, but you pulled it out as far as being the.
As far as the vote.
The vote.
that was the only thing.
So now I'm asking you to put it back in. Because we still have to do it. And our materials will be coming at some point for the shack.
And I was hoping Melinda was still here, but I don't know if anybody else is from the shack, but you're talking about the presentation that we had from the first lady that came in the first
Yeah.
shack,
So
or
I
the
think
second shack
Because there
meeting.
was so much discord, I mean, I'm just guessing, but in the shack meeting, there was not a lot of support for the materials that were being presented. And I think that they were concerned that it wasn't appropriate for our community, and that we wouldn't necessarily, we wanted to review more materials. Because that was what was brought up at the shack meeting. They were saying, can we have some other materials? Because we just had one. And
Wasn't there
so
supposed to be a second person come in with that?
they were gonna bring in more materials.
The list of who's approved or what's approved.
Yeah, so the shack committee wanted more
Yeah,
materials
I wasn't at that
to review.
meeting, so.
So I think that's why we maybe tweaked what was voted on, hoping we would have materials to vote on. But the process is still, it's vague, but then later we can get the appropriate materials. And I think that's where we'll have an option. But we
We'll still have
we
to
don't
hold
have an
two
option to have a
public
process,
hearings.
I think.
Yeah, that's what it's
So you're still going to know more about it.
Yeah, there's talking about it.
So this policy is just to establish a process to look at the curriculum.
Yes.
Yes.
We do not have to okay any curriculum, do we?
We have to okay some curriculum.
After
That's
the-
what they're saying, is that we have to have a
hearing.
curriculum.
Yeah.
After the
So you have
hearings.
to have some curriculum?
But the shack committee is gonna have more review
More recommendations on
before
that.
we just pick.
But so right now, you'll have no recommendations and no material?
We had one, and a
But
lot
y'all
of
didn't
people
really like-
didn't really like
Y'all
it.
didn't recommend that?
So they were gonna go back and get others, but we don't have others yet.
And when they do, this policy allows you to do that, and then you come before the board and have public meetings, right? And everything, at least 2 of them, just since the SHAC committee is more like a board meeting, you post minute, agendas and everything else, keep minutes and
All right,
everything.
well, I understand a little bit
You know,
better. Ms. Vega.
It's just on the process. Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Okay, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Second, discuss and consider second reading of special education policies, EHB local and EHBAA local. Ms. Secor.
These are special education policies that were given to us that we must adopt, and this is the second reading.
Okay, have a second reading. Okay, maybe the second reading. Two recommendations.
Okay, it's the administration's recommendation that the board approves the second reading of special education policies, EHB local and EHBAA local as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Secor. Thank you, Ben. And who has a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, Jenny seconds. Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Next one is discuss and consider naming of a facility after an individual, policy CW local.
All right, we have a board policy that says you can only name a building or facility for someone after they have been deceased 5 years. We had a board member who wanted this on the agenda to discuss.
What, up in the, where was it?
So what do they want to
Yeah, the
discuss?
one, you talked to the NJROTC commander?
Yes.
What was that information that he gave you? I mean,
He would prefer, he thought it would be better, instead of naming the NJROTC, for someone that a bench be out there by the flagpole where we had our ceremony that day, because it would be more visible than being in the back where his program is.
that,
Since we have the other bench going onto the facility though, I would like to make that motion now for it to be the shooting gallery that we put in there, that bond.
In 5 years.
I would like to discuss changing this under the circumstances that occurred in this scenario. That we go back and revisit this on this deal, on the 5-year wait. Because obviously, we're accepting gifts that are close to $5,000, which should have a big flag on it. And we have no time preference on those gift receivings.
That's true, and it was a gift, and it comes to us all paid for.
Well, I think, yeah, no, and normally there's a law within receiving something of that magnitude of cost. So in that particular moment, I would say, I would like to exercise the right to remove this 5 years and name the shooting range at the NJRTC facility under Mr. Felix Landine Jr.
Okay, is that your motion?
That's what I'm requesting to change to. I can't motion it, I mean, we have to discuss it and then come back to it.
Okay.
since you're wanting to change the policy.
Yeah, I'm requesting for us to remove the 5-year status. I guess, I don't think we can get a rehired dead person, so, since that's been my beef about everything, so in that particular case, I think death is death, and we can visit that discussion.
What is retire, rehire?
The reason we did that was, this whole add-on, and the day that we added this policy was because everybody was coming back. And I didn't want Bobby to come back later.
Oh.
And get his name put right back up on that wall. Because we would have looked silly taking it off the wall and putting it back on the wall. Now, I didn't expect Coach Craig to pass away either, okay? I thought the man would be with us for a while, so it was one of those scenarios that, let's put a time frame on it. And then we went to, upon their being deceased. But I do think we need to visit that receiving of gifts. We need to look at that as a local policy. But I'll stick with this one first.
Because gifts are a separate policy.
Right, we'll deal with this one right now.
So you're talking about the
I'm asking
CW
about this
local?
right here, I'm talking about CW local. I'd like this to be a first reading with the changes, saying that we remove the 5 years, so that we could name the ROTC shooting range after Mr. Lundy for his time of service and his dedication to the program.
Okay. You'd rather have it back there where nobody would see it in the back?
He wants to name the building.
Huh?
He
Well, I
wants to name
wanted the building, but at first, I wanted that there to be something out on the building. But if we're not gonna do that, I think that shooting range would be something more that he would be honored to have named after him instead of. Cemetery benches belong at the cemetery, guys, and that's the way the man thought. And that's a practice he taught me in my, through my time of working with him. So I wouldn't wanna see a bench with his name on it.
Okay, well then, the administrative recommendation was,
To continue to follow the board policy as it's written, policy CW local,
okay, now,
and you have that in your packet.
yes. And also, you're requesting that the policy be changed.
To remove the 5-year
Okay.
waiting period.
You want to get rid of number 2.
Right. Well, no, still to death. 'Cause believe me, I have a feeling we're gonna be renaming some things.
Until after being deceased. Okay. All right, well then there's no motion or second on it, so it's a first reading, so we'll go on to the next one. Board debriefing, discuss on recent TASB governance conference. There were 4 of us that attended this. This is a report out on the conference that we went to in Galveston. Mr. Benavides, Arriaga, and myself, Arriaga, I'm sitting there thinking about it.
Should be there.
Myself and Mr. Cora, yeah. And who would like to start off with what part they liked the most? Or what they'd like to report on?
I'll do it. It was really nice to go to this conference. I had a lot of information. But the one that really stood out to me was, I went to a session where the Montgomery County ISD, the kids were doing a presentation. You had 3 high school students from one Montgomery County school and the other 3 from the other one. There's 2 high schools in that ISD. And these kids learned everything about doing a bond. I mean, an actual bond for their community. And they wrote it, figured it all out. I mean, of course, they had help from the school district. I'm sure the attorneys and all that kind of stuff also guided them. But they did it themselves. And they passed like a $30 million bond. They got a new elementary school for one of the campuses. Remarkable stuff. And what really got me was at the end they asked the kids, "Hey, how did your parents feel about y'all doing this?" And I mean, I guess 4 out of the 6, the parents had no idea how to do a bond. Like a lot of us, I mean, I don't know what goes in detail into a bond, I mean, I'm hoping to learn here soon, but, you know, these kids were all in, you know, and it just shows that when the administration and the principals and assistant principals and everybody gets behind the kids, there's no limit to what they want to learn. I mean, for them writing a bond, it was just really, there's so many other things that came in, but that stuck with me on that. And what really worried me about one of the discussions was like our high school, if I'm not mistaken, we only have one air condition at the high school, that one
No, we have
central unit.
the chillers, but there's 3 chillers.
Okay, so on another one of the conference, the sessions, they were explaining how, you know, these new schools that are enclosed so much with no windows and stuff like that, during the COVID was extremely dangerous because there wasn't no filters. I mean, the guy pinpointed every single little dot. He said, there's no filters that could have held COVID out. COVID is so, you know, the specs on COVID was so tiny that the best filter in the world couldn't hold COVID out. So that made me start thinking, because of course, when the air conditioning goes down, they send the kids home. And that's something that as a district, we're really gonna have to look at, because it affects everybody. We have all these kids there, staff, teachers, everybody, you know, and if our system's not even up to par with, you know, with some of the stuff that nowadays, the COVID and whatever else is coming along can really affect our kids, our breathing and all this, and affect our people. You know, but those are the things I took out of. Of course, there was many things. I went to, I think, 6 or 7 classes. I didn't go to all of them, but I went to a lot of them and stuff, and it was really, really interesting. Thank y'all for allowing me to go.
Maybe?
Tagging on to what Mr. Benavides said, my takeaway from the conference, which was it was remarkable. I learned a lot. But tagging on to what he said, my takeaway was, if you give students the resources that they can use or that they need, they can do anything. That was my takeaway from what he was saying with what these students did in developing a bond. It doesn't matter. We got to see demonstrations of their creativity in technology and in science and so many other different fields that. And I just stood there and I watched this and I said, gosh, all we have to do as educators is give the kids the resources, give them what they need, and they can do it. They can do it. You make them believe that they can do it. Here's what you need. This is what you need. Here's what we have for you. Go for it, and they'll do it. And I was very impressed by the things that they had, that they were there demonstrating the work that they accomplished just by giving the opportunity, the resources, and the support. That was my takeaway. It was amazing.
Okay, the first day was school board topics, and the second day was student voices, and so we got to hear outstanding students talk about how they were hardly ever at school because they were in one-act play and ag shows and sports, and so they were just hardly ever at school. And these were students who were speaking from different school districts, and they were comparing notes. You know, well, what did y'all learn in algebra? Well, we don't know because we were out on the road. We were showing a pig. You know, and so it was pretty interesting to see how these highly motivated students were doing and still making honor roll. And then another session I went to was about foster students, and they had 4 girls speaking about our foster care system and how many schools they had been in over time and how they had been treated and how just the least term that a school person could make to them, whether it's an administrator, a secretary, or a teacher, just belittled them because they might say something like, oh, you're a foster care kid, you ride that other bus, or you're a foster care kid, we don't expect you to be here long. And that just kind of killed their spirits. And some of them got in with the wrong crowd and made some bad decisions. One girl was arrested quite a bit, but they were able, through this one agency, to turn their lives around. And all these 4 girls were in college. And if you're a foster care child, you get to go to the state-supported college without a fee. And every one of them was in college, making something of themselves. And then they had question and answer at the end. So I asked them, you know, what is it that you have learned that has set a career for you? What is your career choice? And who supported you in this decision? And many of them said it was a significant teacher at the high school that kept them in school. And every one of them wanted to give back to social services and help other foster children. And so it was really uplifting. I mean, these girls could have dropped out and made nothing of their lives and been on the street, and yet they had turned their lives around. So it was pretty enjoyable to see that people can make a change.
I'm along with Ben and Jenny and Ms. Sikora. It was mainly on kids, and that was the most interesting. There were some few things on that first day that were mainly TASB presentations that were good. Learned some things, which was interesting. I got volunteered for a group, for one thing. But the second day was very impressive, much like what Ben said. There were several sessions. There was for kids, about kids and what kids had done. Like Janie was saying, if they were given the opportunity, tools, resources, and time, they could do it. And there were some of them one of them was at, I think it was Victoria Junior College or community college up in Victoria, that had a program that would help kids, much like between ACC and high school that we have dual credits and things. There were kids that were doing excellent, turned their lives around and everything. And they had a little demonstration, different things, and what impressed me was little Rivera, however you pronounce it, did their own podcast stuff. I mean, they had the equipment, everything set up out there. I'm going, wow. From there, little schools to the big schools that had marketing campaigns that sold all kinds of commodities and had money, that made money for different groups there at the school. And it was amazing. Finally, one of them said, "You've got to take one of these pens. We build them." And he gave me one. And, you know, they put them together, but it's one that you can use on a phone or touch screen, everything. Stylus. And the presentation, they held off lunch dessert, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, dessert. They wanted to make sure everybody stayed there for all the kids that came in and gave a little discussion. That was rather impressive as well. So, but it was very inspiring because, like they were saying, you give the kids tools, the time, and the talent, guide them in direction. They take off. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. Okay.
Real quick, Paul. There was, at the TASB, they did a scholarship at one of the breakfasts by Skylar. This 6 foot tall, blonde headed girl. She was it, man. She did everything at the school. She was real motivated. I mean, she motivated all the younger kids. And what really impressed me about her, that her father had just passed away 2 months ago. And she was there strong. I mean, she had everybody in tears because of her strength. And there was another little girl there, her name was Alexis, and she was from Pearland. And this young lady was the first generation from a Mexican-American family. She was going to be the first high school graduate. And she started a program at her high school called Adelante. You know, something that, she did it. She started it, and it helps the younger kids in her school that of Mexican American heritage that need help. So she started that program on her own. Hopefully it'll continue. But I mean, kids were amazing, but that Skylar girl, man, she took the whole, she is what we all want our kids to be. I mean, she was a solid rock, man. It was really impressive.
She was one of the ones that did all the extracurricular
Everything.
activities and everything.
Everything. From UIL to one-act plays, I mean, she did it all.
In a small school district, she, outstanding, remarkable young lady. Anything else? Okay, then we move on to the consent agenda items. Ms. Support.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Philip?
John?
Oh, no.
Philip, do I pick on you every week, every month, Philip?
No comment.
I'm not gonna answer that.
Man, I can answer that on the
Grounds that I
grounds.
may incriminate
There you
myself.
go.
Surprise
No,
you.
I actually, that looks really tight today. I didn't really find nothing that looks like everybody was,
Hey, that's the new CEO right there.
it was all laid out, all neat and everything.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was good.
Very good, you gave me a surprise.
Hurry up before you.
Yeah, no, you better hurry up before Stephen finds something. 'Cause
Well, no,
I see him scrolling.
I'm moving past that section.
Do we,
I clicked right past it, I didn't even want to look at it.
do we have a motion on the administrative recommendation? Thank you, Ben. Do we have a
It's
second?
administration's recommendation that the board approves the consent agenda as presented.
Oh, I thought you.
Gotta edit yourself.
Okay,
Ben,
Ben and John. Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. All right. Once again, closed session. Sorry, thank you. But you're welcome to stay around if you like.
Can we have a little recess before we go to closed session?
Okay?
Let's take
Let's take a
5
10-minute.
minutes.
No more than 10, okay?
Get up.
Board will convene in closed meeting as authorized by Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 551 for possible discuss employee certification, non-certification personnel, 551.074, discuss contract renewals of certified, non-certified personnel, 551.074, discuss contract renewal of administrative contract, 551.074, discuss employee resignations. If a closed session item requires action, the board should take such action upon reconvening an open session. 551.102, a certified agenda if a closed session is maintained. 551.103, items are posted and disclosed in accordance with the law. 551.104. It is 8:08 p.m. Excuse me, March the 21st, 2022. We're in closed session. I agree, John. Okay, it is 8:54 p.m., March the 21st, 2022. We're back in open session. Mr. Core, please.
Yes, Christopher O'Neill has had an administrative probationary contract that will end on June 30th, 2022. He is eligible for an administrative term contract that will end on June 30th, 2023. It is the recommendation that Christopher O'Neill be issued the contract, the term contract for which he is eligible, as presented.
I'll make that motion. Do we have a second, please? Ben seconds. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Ms. Support?
All right, with this packet, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees renew a one-year contract for the educator term, dual term, part-time educator term, educator probationary, dual probationary, educator retire-rehire, and non-Chapter 21 contracts for the 2022 to 2023 school year as presented on these attached lists.
Thank you, Ms. Sikora. Do we have a motion on administrative recommendation? Thank you, Ben. John seconds. Comments or questions? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Rick. much.
Okay, this is one for next year. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees issue an educator probationary contract for the 2022 to 2023 school year to Maria Alvio, Alvio, sorry.
That's how you say it.
Do we have a motion on administrative recommendation, please? Thank you, Ben. Do we have a second, please? Second. John, Jane. JJ. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Cornish, any further business?
We are concluded.
We are through. There's no further business.
No further business.
Remember, we have the next 3 nights at 6 o'clock. So, entertain a motion to adjourn. Ben, John, all those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Take care, drive safe. And the weather's supposed to get bad, so be careful.
8:56.